We're now going to begin learning Mishna Masechet Zevachim perek Hey, the perek known as Ezahu Mekoman. It's the perek that we say is part of the Korbanot section of Shacharit every day, and it sums up most of the details, or at least the basic details, of most of the Korbanot. So let's begin. The perek begins, Ezahu Mekoman shel Zevachim. What is the place of the Korbanot? And what that means is, what is the place where the Korbanot will be slaughtered, and the place where the Korbanot's blood will be sprinkled, that being a key part of each of the Korbanot. Kodshei Kodashim Shchitatam Batzafon. So holier Korbanot, and the rest of the perek will tell us which Korbanot are considered to be holier, are slaughtered in the north. The north here means what we call the Beit HaMitbachayim, the slaughterhouse. You could see in the upper right of this picture, right over here. So that's the Mizbeach. So to the north of the Mizbeach is the slaughterhouse. And we have here rings, which were used to hold down animals for slaughtering. We have tables made of marble on which the animals were cut apart, different parts of the animals brought up to the Mizbeach depending on the Korban. And in the foreground we have these pillars with hooks, and these were used to hang the animals for the Korbanot where the skin had to be flayed off, meaning where the skin had to be removed. So if a Korban was Kodshei Kodashim, if it was a holier Korban, it was slaughtered here in the north. Tzafon means the Beit HaMitbachayim in this case. And for our first example, Par v'Sair shel Yom HaKippurim shchitatan batzafon. The cow and the goat of Yom Kippur that were slaughtered by the Kohen Gadol were slaughtered here in the north. V'kibul daman b'chli sharet batzafon. And the receiving of their blood, the second thing done with the blood of every korban, was it had to be caught in a bowl. A kli sharet is a bowl, a kli, a utensil that belongs to the Beit HaMikdash, and that was done also in the tzafon in the north, and that makes sense. If the blood pours out when you slaughter the animal, so you have to be waiting there with a bowl to catch it. And then we're told where the blood for these two korbanot are sprinkled, and these two korbanot are the most unique. Daman ta'un hazaya. The word ta'un means needs. Hazaya means sprinkled, what we sometimes call zrikat hadam. So the blood of these two korbanot, of the cow and the goat of Yom Kippur, their blood needed to be sprinkled in three places. Al bein habadim. Bein habadim is up here, between the poles, and that means the poles of the Aron. We know in the Midbar, all of the utensils of the Beit HaMikdash, the big utensils, had poles so the Leviim could carry them. Once the permanent Beit HaMikdash was built, they removed the poles from everything but the Aron, because the Torah tells us, "B'tabaot ha'aron yihu abadim lo yasuru mimenu," that the poles have to be through the rings of the Aron. They can never be removed, even after the permanent structure is built. So the first place the blood of these two korbanot was sprinkled was between the poles, and that's the famous entry of the Kohen Gadol into the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur. Now, Kodesh Kodashim means this room of the Beit HaMikdash. Kodshei Kodashim means holier korbanot. So let's keep those straight. And al ha-parochet, the parochet is here, that's kind of brown line. That's the curtain dividing the Kodesh Kodashim from the rest of the Beit HaMikdash. So the blood was also sprinkled on that curtain. V'al Mizbach HaZahav. Mizbach HaZahav is represented by that little yellow square over there. It's also called the Mizbach HaKetoret. That's the Mizbeach where the Kohen would offer Ketoret, would offer incense, spices, every single day. And on Yom Kippur, they would sprinkle the blood of those korbanot there as well. Matana achat mehen me'akavet. So what this line tells us is, matana achat. Matana means one sprinkling of blood. It's not a present, the way we think of presents, but it's a present to Hashem of the blood of the animal. And one of those sprinklings, me'akevet. So me'akev means to hold back a mitzvah. You might think these are three separate mitzvot, sprinkling the blood in three locations, and if you do 2 out of 3, so you're okay. You just didn't do the third mitzvah. And so the Mishnah tells us, no, that's not true. Matana achat mehem me'akavet, it's all or nothing. If you don't do one of these 3 sprinklings, if the Kohen Gadol sprinkles the blood on the Aron and on the Parochet, but not on the Mizbeach, me'akevet, it holds up the entire mitzvah, and he has to start over completely. It's as if he did nothing. And then the Kohen is still going to have blood left in the bowl, because a lot of blood comes out from the animal, and he's really only sprinkling a tiny bit. So the Mishnah tells us, Shiarei Hadam, the leftover blood, Hayas Shofech al Yesod Ma'aravi Shel Mizbeach HaChitzon. The leftover blood would be sprinkled on the Yesod Ma'aravi, the western part of the base of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outer Mizbeach. So this is the outer Mizbeach. You see in the upper left corner, there's the Beit HaMitbachayim, to the north of it. So that's the north. Here's east, south, west. And down in the western corner, right where that red arrow is, are two holes. And those two holes are basically a drainage system. And leftover blood, we'll see for many korbanot, was poured down into there, and the blood would run out. And the Mishnah tells us it would actually run out into Nachal Kidron, a stream that went behind Har HaBayit. Nowadays that stream has been dried up. It's just a valley. But the Kohen Gadol would take the leftover blood of this par and sa'ir, of this cow and this goat, and would pour whatever blood he hadn't sprinkled down into these pipes that were at the base of the Mizbeach. And finally, the Mishnah tells us, Im lo natan lo ikev. If he did not give that blood, if he did not pour the blood into the pipes, lo ikev, so that does not hold up the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the sprinkling of the blood on 3 locations. If he does not then dispose of the blood properly, he still has performed the mitzvah connected to these korbanot.